We were so laser focused on where we needed to be, we zoned out all those distractions.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Peter O. Estevez Show. This is your host, Peter O. Estevez. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, I am really excited to have today a friend, a mother, a wife, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a member of the community that is very active in empowering others. And she's also one of our featured speakers at LatinTalks Houston, Stepheny JACQUEZ. Hello, Stepheny. Welcome to the Peter O. Estevez Show.
Thank you. Thank you for a great introduction. And I'm very excited to be part of this episode. Thank you for sharing your platform with me and including me in everything that you're doing. I couldn't be more excited.
Well, you know, you caught my attention in social media. You and your sisters caught my attention in social media several months ago, and we connected and eventually got you to convince you to come on LatinTalks. So, but today we're going to talk about you, who you are, what you're doing as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, as a member of your community. Let me talk a little bit about your bio before we go into it. Stepheny, I pronounce it JACQUEZ. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
You are. You are.
She began her entrepreneurial journey at the age of 18 years old as the CEO of Original Motors, Inc., a pre-owned car dealership in Houston, Texas. She is a result-driven entrepreneur with 11 years experience. In 2019, Stepheny began investing in real estate in both commercial and residential properties, building a diverse portfolio. She has a passion for inspiring women to be leaders of their own lives and to live a purpose in business, mind, body, and soul. Well,
that's correct.
That's a heavy undertaking. Tell me, you and I had spoken before, primarily about some of the isms that exist in the Latino community, some of the lone hell belief systems that many of them are dear to our heart, and we want to continue to foster them. But a lot of them, in my opinion, and the opinion of many, primarily the millennial generation, the Jay-Z generation, the X generation, and other generations, have seen that some of those belief systems that we have adopted from our parents, from our grandparents, and from multi-generations are not working for us, for us. So how is it that coming from a diverse background, as I do, and my story is very public, how is it that you develop this passion to serve women, empower women, mind, soul, body?
Yeah, so this started a few years ago. So I went through a very transitional phase, and I wanted to venture out onto new projects and go a different route. I became an entrepreneur very young. This was 18 years old. A lot of things I didn't know. I had to learn along the way. I was starting to learn who I was as I was building a business, as I was a young mother, as I was a wife. And on top of that, I'm building a business. I get very lost in the process of who I am and what it is that my passion is and what is that I'm supposed to be doing. Am I on the correct path? I know what I'm good at because I'm great at sales. I'm great at selling cars and dealing with clients and customers. That's what I'm good at. But what is it that I love? And in that transition, I started to discover a lot of things that I needed to improve, a lot of things that were passed down from family, a lot of things that were unresolved that I had to face and overcome to step into the new person that I wanted to be. And along that journey, I realized I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only woman. I'm not, there's more like me. And if I can now share this journey of mine and what I've learned and some of this wisdom that I learned early on, because I started this entrepreneurship at just 18 years old, and it's now been over 10 years. I say 10 years has been my college, that has been my university, that has been my
MBA, your MBA.
And now I'm at a phase where I'm now entering a different phase, a new decade. And I feel like I know so much through failures, through winnings, through just digging deep and realizing who I am, that I want to be able to share that with other women so they know they're not alone.
I love that. Let's talk about traditional roles. Your role as a businesswoman at 18 years old is not very common in the Latino community,
at all.
primarily in a certain demographic, the lower income, immigrant parents, that type of generation. Typically, it's not very common for a young woman to start a business at 18 years old. As a matter of fact, more traditionally, they're preparing to get married, have children, no planning for education, no planning for a future other than repeat the cycle, right? Whatever that cycle may be. And why is it that you were a businesswoman at the age of 18 years old? And that's a double question. The other question is, a lot of times what we do in life is we think that we need to learn something, okay, in order to move forward, to advance, to grow, to evolve. But a lot of times we need to unlearn stuff, okay? Right. So what is it in your journey that the first question is, what did you have to learn in order to become a successful business partner, wife, mother, okay, and at the same time member of your community and be active? And why were you in business at such a young age?
Okay, so if I have to answer that, I have to go back. I have to go way because at 18 years old, I have to go back to my early teens. So I my parents have been in the United States for a long time. My dad has actually, my mom was born here in Houston, moved back to Mexico for a couple of years. She came back and we were all born here in Texas. And early on, my parents taught me a lot of morals, a lot of discipline, work hard. That's something that they really pushed on to me, especially my dad. You have to work very, very hard. And there were certain things expected of me. And so I'm in school, I'm on the right path. The goal was always for me to go to college because, in our family, there's not many that have a degree. There's not many that are, have reached a certain level of success. So of course my parents want better, and you have to break the generational curses, and you have to break those chains, and you have to make, everything better for the next generation, which is still continuing to be the goal. So I'm in school and I meet my husband now, but he was my boyfriend at the time. And we become the best of friends. And we had a lot of similarities where we both felt like we were old souls. I remember being in school and being like, I need to be out in the world. I had that mentality at a younger age. I'm talking about 13, 14 years old. And I would sit there and I'm just like, there's this whole world out there, and I'm here and I'm in class. And I got to know him, and he was also very driven. And we're talking about, 14, 15 years old. And we would talk about these plans that we would do and these goals and what we were accomplished. So with that fast forwarding, I end up pregnant at 16. It was a big shocker for my parents. There was a goal, a path that I was supposed to follow, that I was supposed to take. And that was very hard times in my family's life, because I now chose something different, which I don't regret now, but it was a big shocker. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It was a big shocker. I ended up leaving my house to move in with my boyfriend as I was 16.
Wow.
I became a mom at 16 years old. And my mom told me once, and she told me one time, like, I will support you and I will be there for you in all that you need. But all that I ask of you is that you graduate. Anything, any degree, just graduate. Please do that for me. And I'm like, of course, Mom, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I graduate at 16. As soon as I know, I go to my principal. What can I do to graduate soon? I have plans. I'm a mom now. So I graduate right away at 16 years old. My husband goes straight to work. I'm going to become a nurse. I go into a community college. I start my prerequisites. I'm a year in school, and I leave my son in daycare as I go off to school. And that was so hard for me. That was so hard leaving him, even if it was a couple of hours. Every time after every class, I would walk to the daycare and I would look at him. And I'm like, what? I hated being away from him. So then I take this little course to work at a nursing home as a CNA, and I get a part-time job while I'm going to school. So going to school and working part-time. And again, I was away from him. I was away from him. My husband was working all day. I feel like I wasn't raising him. And I was 17. I was away all the time. And one day I get a call from my mother-in-law, your son is sick. I'm at work. I'm in a nursing home. It was a horrible feeling and I'm not there. So I remember a few days before I had gotten a check, and it was not the best check. I expected so much more for the work that I was doing. And I go to the office. I'm like, excuse me, why is my check very small? And she was like, no, that's your salary. That's what you're making. And I honestly thought inside my mind that there was a mistake, because there's no way I was working so hard and they only paid me that little and I'm away from my son. So then he gets sick. In that moment, I realized, which was not the right thing to do, I quit on the spot. You should give your notice. And sure. I went to, but in that moment, that's what I felt like I needed to do. I was only there for a month, and that life was not for me. And I quit on the spot of being away from my son, the 9 to 5. I felt like I wanted better. And that's not what I wanted for us. So speaking back and forth with my husband, what's the plan? I was 17. This was before my 18th birthday, I remember. Wow. So he quit the job. I am now jobless. And we took a chance. We took a chance with a couple of thousand that we had saved. There was already history, and there's actually a lot of background in his family with the car industry. I knew nothing about cars, but I know what I didn't want, and that was enough for me to go all in. And that was enough for me to go all in to say, you know what, I don't know it, but I'm going to learn it as long as I have my son. And that's exactly what we did. We realized, we did our research, what's needed to open up your car dealership. My husband was older at the time. He's 3 years older than I am. So he applied for the license, and because he was older, I'm 18, the bond for me would have been insane. That's what we did. We started with 3 pre-owned cars, a 99 Tahoe. That was the one of the only ones I could remember. How we sold it and that bond we had with our first client. But that being said, that's what kind of started the entrepreneur journey, being away from my son and not spending time with him. So I knew that's not what I wanted. And I wanted him with me, and I wanted freedom. And I didn't want anyone to tell me what I'm worth, because at that job, they were only paying me, I was giving so much of my time, and what they were valuing my skills were so low. And I couldn't, at 17, I was not understanding, like that was my first concept of a real job. And I was, they just can't be. I know how to work because my dad taught me that. I know, I know what my skills are and what I'm capable at 17. So that was that. That's how that came about. I become a business owner at 18. And some of the things that I had to unlearn were, I would say, more of the negative thoughts. I would say the things, because I am starting something new within the family, and it's breaking the cycle, which is, my mom asked me for that degree. And there was a little drift there when I quit school and quit my job to now become an entrepreneur, which is not the norm. And having to deal with that, having to deal with it's not going to work. The negativity, the negative self-thoughts, all of that, things that I had to break.
I love a couple of things that stand out from your story. One of them is I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew what I didn't want. Okay. Exactly. And that is so profound in many, many, many different ways, because a lot of times we know what we don't want, but we are so rooted to our comfort zone that we're not willing to take any chances. We're not willing to take any gambles. We stay on our comfort zone, again, not because it's comfortable, but because it's known. So we don't make a chance. We don't take a chance. And the other thing that you said is, I knew my worth. Okay, I knew my worth. I had worked this many number of hours, and they were not valuing me as a person, as a mother. Okay, taking your time away from your child, and you're making such a small amount of money. Now, today you just recently had a birthday. You have your son is 13, 14 years old, right? Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
13.
So let's talk about that, okay? Because you're almost at the same place where your parents were when you got pregnant, right?
Very, and that's something mentally that I'm dealing with right now.
Okay. So let's talk about that, because I think that that's an important pivotal point of how we move forward as a generation, as how do we break the cycles? What are you doing differently as a parent? And this is not minimizing your parents, what they did do. Okay, this is how has your experience helped you to parent and to communicate with your child, for that matter.
Yes, correct. And I have this conversation all the time, and it's great that you brought it up, because I am at that point now. My son is 13, and it's a fear of mine, because my mother and I, and many cycles before, that's the cycle of young mom, marriage, and I don't want it to continue. This is where it ends. This is where it stops with me. So I need to make sure that I'm taking the right steps to ensuring that. And for me as a mom, I'm making sure I'm very present. I'm very involved. I talk a lot. I'm very open. That's something that I didn't have with my family. There were certain things that weren't spoken about, that we all maybe knew, but they're just not talked about, certain emotions that we don't speak about. And again, that's just because what they knew. They did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had.
Right.
And it's my job to make sure I'm educated on the subject. How can I break the cycle? I'm speaking with my kids every day. How's morning? I'm checking phones. I know that now we live in a different era, and things are even more difficult now than they were for me without technology. Well, there's technology, but just not as much. And now everything's so easy access. So I'm on top of it. He knows I'm a teen mom. He went through the whole journey with me, because I was 16. We basically
grew up together.
We raised each other, because and I was growing up while I was raising him. So he remembers everything. I would be with clients, and he was a toddler next to me. I was sitting down, and he was a great child. He wouldn't move. Now my second child, that's a different story. But I would listen, and they would stay. Okay, I'm going to work. I have a customer. I'm going to do a client. Please, give me an hour. Give me an hour. Just, I would give him a toys to play with, and he knows the journey. And I'm very open about how his dad and I met, and I became a young mom, but I'm also teaching him that wasn't the right route. And there's different things that he can do. And I'm working hard to provide him the best life possible, and to give him the best of everything. And I want him to know that there's more, and that all this hard work has been for him.
You touch on a couple of things right there, Stepheny, and that is that our parents did the best that they could with the information they have, with the resources they have, with what they knew. And I think a lot of times when we talk about these conversations, primarily in the little bit older generations, like I have brothers that are 6, 7, 10 years older than me, right? I'm one of 13 children. So they get very uncomfortable when I talk about these topics. They almost look at me as if I was talking down to my parents, to my family, as almost to a certain amount of betrayal of where I came from. And the reality is that it's not looking down in our generations. It's not looking at our parents. We completely understand that they knew what they knew, and they had what they had, and that's all they could give. But the reality is that at some point we have a responsibility, whether we're at the custody of our parents or not, to do better, to be better, to become better. And it's up to us to discover that path, that journey, right? I often say that my parents didn't bring me here where I'm at right now, but they brought me here, right? So they brought me to this universe. They brought me to this land. They brought me to the opportunity. It is up to me to discover that path. It is up to me to discover the journey. It is up to me to become who I desire to become. My parents' job was pretty much finished the minute they raised me, and I went on my own. Okay. Now let's talk about, when you said that, how would you handle a situation today if your son told you that he met a young girl and he wanted to get married? How would you handle that situation? What would you do differently today?
Oh, now I probably wouldn't handle it well. Talking about my son and girls it gives me anxiety. But that's something that's very real and that it could happen because there's always two routes. You can
Right.
either opposite or you can follow in the footsteps, and I'm doing the best that I can. So he goes in the opposite direction and does things very differently. But if it were to happen, I hope that up until now and, the next couple of years, that I've taught him enough skills, and my husband and I have taught him enough skills,
Yeah.
and we have implemented in him and his mentality of what it is to be a good person, of what it is to work hard. That's one of the things that my parents taught me, and I'm teaching my children for sure: hard work, discipline, and the right mentality and the entrepreneurship skills and all of that, that he, no matter what happens, will go in make sure that he goes in the right direction, as kind of I and my husband did, because things are bound to happen, and sometimes as a parent it's out of my control. I can only control so much, but I can for sure share the things that I want him to know, and that I really make that known in his mind and I brain, that I expect certain things, and that he has learned enough to continue forward and to make the continued pushing and growing and becoming the best that he can be.
Yeah, I think the prime example is that the fact is that we don't do what people tell us to do, or people don't do what we say. People do what we do, right? So a lot of the cycles we repeat it, okay, and we carry on into the next generation, is because that's what we watch, that's what we saw. Okay, but as we grow and we evolve, the new generation adopts a new belief system, adopts new ideas, adopts new value systems. So now your son doesn't see you anymore like that 16-year-old pregnant mother. He doesn't see you anymore. He doesn't see your father like that young, strangly young man at the age of 19 trying to put together a car dealer. Now they see a successful mother and parent with values, with morals, with pillars of their community, that they're active and they're doing things to better themselves, but not only themselves, our community, right? So I think that those are the things that begin to break the cycles. Those are the things that begin to change, to chip away from that belief system that we have been so inherent to. But I think it's also important that we talk about, the do's and the don'ts, right? So how when you have a 13-year-old child, because not and you like me comes from and most Latinos, we come from a long generation of we have big families, right?
We do.
And not the cousins, not the uncles, not every family member evolves, changes, grows, has the same dreams, has the same desires. So how is it that you are able to have a conversation with your son, or anyone for that matter, even with yourself, to not do certain things when they still see it in the community happen? How do you handle those situations?
I think you said it. Kids act not by what you say, but what they see. And I became the change that I wanted to see in my family to come. And I only continue to improve myself, and, improving myself as a mom, as a woman, will improve my family, because the best that I am, the better I can educate and teach them and pass all the positivity that I can to them. So that's something that I'm doing. I make sure that they see that they're active, that I'm active, what's important to me, what's important to our family. We talk about sports. We talk about his dreams. And with that, you want to be a basketball player. My son is 6'3".
Wow.
He's 13. He looks, 18, which makes me more nervous. And we talk about these dreams. Okay, well, we talk about the positivity, but if this were to happen, and if you were to go the route, then you can't pursue those dreams anymore, because this was the scenario that could play out. Or if, you focus on school and you focus on your dreams and sports and basketball, this is where you can become. So we talk about those dreams. We're at dinner and, they come up to him, you're going to be a football player. He loves basketball. And he's like, no, I'm going to be a basketball player. And we talk about the things that he's going to do when he becomes a basketball player. And I make sure that I talk about, all that can come. But if you were to kind of do this and go my route, then you're going to have to change that path. So I'm always very honest. I'm a realist. That's who I am. And I talk about both scenarios, and I'm very open with them. sometimes I wonder if it's too much that that I'm too open and I have these conversations, but I don't think so, because I wish I would have known this stuff back then.
Yeah.
And conversations that I wish I would have had, or different scenarios, and talking about emotions and how do you feel. And that's something I also didn't have. I really wasn't big on speaking about emotions. So I make sure that I know their emotions and what's constantly going on. If I notice a change, or I'm very involved in school as well. So I make sure I'm very on top of everything as much that I can.
I love that. Let's talk about something, because there's a big misconception in the Latino community, or overall, even outside the Latino community. We're always seen as there's a lot of family unity. We're happy. We get together. The word is often used. That was always many other cultures say, well, I want to marry a Mexican woman because they're warm, they're loving, they're caring, they're great homemakers, they're great mothers. So there's that myth, okay? But I think that in a lot of families, I know it was prevalent in my family, there's what I call dysfunctional love, okay? There's a lot of dysfunction within the household. And from surface level from illiteracy to poverty, in some mental health issues, alcoholism, sexual abuse, whatever it may be, right? And I'm not saying that this is an isolated case to the Latino community, but it is very prevalent in our community, because you're right, this is something that we didn't talk about. We, I think many of our parents, many of our generations, the older generations, they come from the I call them the silent generation, right? They're stout. They didn't speak about the issues. They just kind of carry on, work hard, push forward. And then the second generation is a generation that they wanted to figure out how to get out of that mentality, but they didn't know how. So they thought that work. Okay. And then we have that generation that perhaps you and your sisters fall into, is the WTF generation. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. I know that's what mom said. I know that's what dad said, but that doesn't make sense. I know that's what they knew. That's what grandpa might have taught them, but it doesn't make sense. And then we have your son. It's your generation that, wait a minute. If you're not going to teach me how to do it, I'm going to go out and do it on my own. Right? You're one of 13, you're one of 3 sisters, right? And each one of y'all are successful in your own right. Okay. What kind of conversations, I'm interested to know, what kind of conversations you have with your mom and dad today about the issues that are happening and about how you grew up?
Okay. So starting from the beginning, me and my sisters me and Meredith are 1.5 years apart.
Wow.
We basically grew up as twins, so we look very alike. And Kimberly, there's a bigger gap. There's, I believe, 7 years. So it was me and Meredith for a very long time. And we all have very different upbringings. If you ask us individually what our childhood was like, everyone's going to share a different story. You're going to think it's different families, because our mindsets are very different. And we had to, now as 3 of us, we've had to learn what our love language is like and what is our strengths and weaknesses. There has been a lot of work that has needed to go into to be, all on the same level, where we agree to disagree, but we still love each other. And there's been a lot of work there. And obviously there's continuing to work, because we're all growing and improving, and new conversations. But our talks as a family, there's a lot of laughter. We love hard. We fight hard, because there's so much passion there and so much love for each other, that we want to see the best one be the best that they can be. I am the middle child, but I believe I'm the oldest in my mind. And I'm more of, I did this in my certain type of way, and I'm very tough love. I'm one of the negative traits that I picked up was not speaking about emotion. That's something to me. Emotion is weakness. And I've had to learn and understand that, and, dig deep. Why is it to me being vulnerable is weak? It's being my worst, and it's not acceptable, because, you always have to put your best foot forward. And if you feel good, you look, all these things that I put in my mind of what it should be. And as we're getting older and new levels require new you, all that you, that's what I always think. And as I'm reaching new levels, I kind of have to dig deep and peel these layers of unresolved emotions or situations that I didn't work on growing up. And the same for my sisters. I would say it's the same for my sisters. When Meredith is very, she's very passionate as well, but she shows her passion with more emotion than I would. And Kimberly I always say Kimberly is a combination of mom and dad, of me and Meredith, and one. And still growing up, she still has a lot of growing to do, but I tell her, you're kind of in the best position because you have my mistakes. You have Meredith had the education. You have both scenarios. And you're able to combine all of what we've learned, and now you have the resources. You have the resources. So we make sure that we're always on the right path. When one is kind of out and off the path, we're ones to always make sure that we let each other know. Sometimes it's not what we want to hear because you're automatically guarded. It's family, but it's what we need to hear at that time. And who better than when it's someone you love and someone you truly care about, which is your family, your sisters, your parents. And as far as my parents, they're always very proud, and they're picking up on our ways and the mentality. My dad has always been very hardworking, but as someone who didn't speak about emotion, I was the closest to my dad, and it's like saying I love you was something that we kind of didn't start saying up until a few years ago. So and as we're growing and expanding, they are too. They're starting to now see, okay, maybe I did, and accepting what could have been done different, and it's okay, but now we're going to work towards the future and how the kids are coming, because I'm the only one with kids, but eventually, the sisters will have children, and how can we move forward with that generation? But they're great talks. I mean, if you come over for Sunday barbecue, we're laughing, we're joking. You get all the emotions in one day.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk about education, because I'm a key proponent of education. I truly believe that education is a true form of freedom. And I don't come from a pedigree of education, right? I later on in life I was able to go to Harvard, to do a lot of great things that perhaps as a continuing education program, but I was able to do a lot of things that I didn't have an opportunity to do early on, either because I didn't have access to the information, because my parents didn't have the access to the information, because I was paralyzed by immediate surrounding, because of social condition, whatever you want to call it. Okay. I'm also a big proponent of continuing education to personal development, personal growth, which is something that you and your sisters often talk about and are very active on doing. Okay. I think early on, not only our culture, but many cultures will believe that, okay, you either graduate or don't graduate, whatever it is, but that's where education stops, right? That's it. You don't, if you don't come from an educational pedigree that your father's a doctor or lawyer or any type of profession, then you were doomed, right? We're not taught early on to pick up a book or read. We were not taught early on to take a course online. We were not taught early on to pursue some type of personal growth, personal development. Now we have a plethora of information available where we're bombarded every day. You can open social media, you're going to see Grant Cardone or Elena or John Assaraf or Robin Sharma or one of the many other incredible thought leaders that contribute to the well-being of education, primarily in personal development space. What do you do in that space yourself to better yourself? And what do you teach your children to do?
Okay, so I love this topic as well because I didn't have a college degree. I didn't finish. So for so long, that was something that affected me in many ways. I would walk into rooms and people, oh, what's your degree? And even though I had already started building a business and reaching a certain level of success and income, because I didn't have the education, I still felt kind of like undeserving. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
So that's something that really was I wish I would have had, and something that I wished I would have finished for so long. And I wish I would have had the education. If I had the education, then I probably would have been at a different level. I wouldn't have felt as much. And as I started networking and then connecting with other people and hearing education, I was like, okay, then maybe it's time for me to go back. But then I don't want to go back because I don't want the 9 to 5. I don't want to be an employee. So I don't need that information that they're going to teach me because I'm no longer going to be a nurse. I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a lawyer. So then, and in business, I could take a business course, but a lot of the stuff I kind of learned through mistakes already. So I didn't find that that was the right path for me. And as I started researching, because now we live in the era where we have internet, we have access to all the knowledge. The things that you have to do is even YouTube. That's where I started. Wanting more and asking more. And I read my first book that kind of started also changing my mentality. And I think this is one of the starter books that we all start to read about. It's Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Sure.
And that's like the fundamental book that I think you want to start learning more. And I read that book and I was like, well, what? Like, there's more. I want more information. And I love learning. And I started to dig deeper, and okay, that book led to others. And I started now realizing what motivational speakers were. And I started looking more into certain courses and just becoming part of these courses. And I would stay up at night looking at YouTube videos and hearing how these people would speak and from their experiences, and kind of tied it in with what I had already gone through. It all made sense. It was just like light bulbs in my head. So I didn't go back for a degree, but I did start investing in education outside and different resources and surrounding myself with different mindsets. I started paying courses. I saw, the John Maxwell leadership. I started investing more because knowledge is power, and applied knowledge is even bigger. It's even better. So it's very, very important. Self-development. I started learning about self-development. How can I become better? I already have these traits, but how can I make them stronger? How can I become more powerful? How can I kind of like really make everything tie together? Because I'm learning these things, but I don't know how to structure it. I don't know how to make it all come in nicely and use it to better grow my business and myself. So self-development is extremely important, and surrounding yourself with the right group of people that are going to think like you or are doing even better than you, because then that motivates you and forces you to level up and become better.
I love that. So tell me, coming from the backgrounds that both you and I come from, okay? How do you protect your energy? Okay, I'm going to talk a little woo-woo right now. How do you create boundaries? How do you are able to have these conversations and to be able to pursue a different type of education, a different type of growth, and not get impacted or get pulled back by your immediate surroundings, by your community, by your aunts, uncles, cousins? How do you navigate that process? And you also said something, the people that you surround with. I'm a big believer of you're 5, right? You become the total sum of the average 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So how do you protect that? And how do you protect your energy? And what do you say to somebody that talks negatively about what you're doing?
Okay, so I had to become emotionally strong and had to become emotionally intelligent. There's many subjects on that. I mean, many resources on becoming emotionally intelligent, because you have to be able to control your emotions. You control yourself, then you can control anything around you, your environment. You can't control what other people do, but you can control how you react. Right. And early on, that's something that I didn't have a concept of, because as you're growing and you're becoming, this new person, people will want to either bring you back down or want a piece of the pie without putting any effort or any work into it. So I would fall into it all the time, and I would get so emotionally drawn and hurt. And there was a point where I had to reflect. Okay, I can't save everybody else if I can't save myself. I can't come back and help fix my certain family members that need the help if I'm not at a certain level first. I can't, possibly positively impact other women or friends that I want to change if I'm not the change first. Right. I had to be that person. I had to grow into it. And that meant letting go of a lot of people. Is it hard? Yes. Is it hard sometimes not speaking to certain family members? Of course. Is it hard letting go of old friends that once you were very close to, but they no longer fit your purpose? Yes. But that's what I knew I needed to do at that moment to become the person that I want to be. And I'm still growing, and every single year is like I take inventory of who's in my life and who continues to stay, or who serve their purpose, because people come and go all the time, and they're going to serve their purpose into your life. It's going to be for the better, for the bad, but it's a lesson. And there comes to a point where you just start picking up on certain things and certain energies where, okay, I can easily tell what type of energy this is going to be. Is it going to serve me? Am I going to help? Are we going to serve each other and be a great friendship, or is it not? And one thing that I learned is believe the first time when somebody shows you who they are, because that's it. That's it. If they did it one time, there is going to be again and again, and that's energy spent. And we have to use our energy very wisely, because when you're building a business and you want success, there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much energy you have, and you can't let other people come and rob you of that. Then you're now not focusing 100% where you should be focusing, which is your business, your family, yourself. And people will take that. They'll rob you from it. There's just takers out there, and they'll take. And you have to learn to separate it and just say, no, these are my boundaries, and it's not serving me. It's not where I want to go, and break it off. I'm very good at, having those conversations if it doesn't serve me.
Love it. It's very common in families, in couples, in marriages, that one individual usually takes the lead, right? And either the partner levels up or stays behind. Okay. In your marriage, in your relationship, how has that worked, and how do you handle it? And how do you become an entity, a partnership, a growing couple?
Okay, that has taken a lot of work. Marriage is always a lot of work, but early on, my husband and I were very wise teens, and we were very wise kids for our age. And we knew, again, what we wanted and what we didn't want. He comes from, he has his own generational curses that he has to, break. And I had my own, but we knew exactly what we wanted and what we didn't want. We knew that the odds were against us, where young Latinos, teen parents, and marriage, and the statistics are there, and they're proven. And that's something that we can't change, but we're very aware of. So being aware of that, okay, then what are we going to do? What's the work that's going to go into? So we make sure that we stay united and we stay as a team, and that we're close. And I think a huge part of that was that we know where we wanted to be in life. So we were very laser focused. We knew what work needed to be done. Family comes first. The business is priority, because we were hungry. We wanted success so bad that we were very focused. A lot of the reasons why teen parents don't make it is because they're so young. They have a lot of distractions. You have your friends. You want to go out and still be a teen, but you can't. But because we were so laser focused on where we needed to be, we zoned out all those distractions, and we made it a priority. Family and business. There was nothing else. I had no social life. Neither did he, because we were so busy working. And then again, every new level requires a new you. We're both growing as individual people. We're both realizing what it is that we like as we're growing. But every time we hit that space, there's communication. Okay, we make sure we communicate what it is that I'm feeling and what it is that he's feeling, so we continue on the same route, and on the same path. You know, of course, everybody has problems. I can't say and be like, oh, we're a perfect marriage. We're constantly working on it. And that's a priority for us. And that's something that it's one of the things that's more important to me. And that I want to pass on to my children as well, that they see loving parents. My grandparents just celebrated 62 years of marriage.
Wow.
And on his end, they're mostly divorced. So then we have what we don't want to be, and we have what we want to be. So we have two examples, and we take a very clear decision of what it is that we continue to work with and what's important, and we will stay on that route. And we have boundaries as a couple. There's things that I know he doesn't like. There's things that he knows that I don't like. So we don't cross those. We never lose the respect.
I love it. As you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, we had a full circle conversation with Stepheny, talking from family to generational cycles, to personal development, to marriage, to boundaries, and everything in between. Stay tuned for watching Stepheny at LatinTalks Houston. What an incredible conversation. I truly, truly enjoyed it. In closing, Stepheny, what would you like to tell the audience?
I would say that it's really up to you. This conversation has been mostly about, Latinos and breaking generational curses. And from here on out, it's up to you who you want to be and what you want the next generation to be like. And you have to take full responsibility of your life and make sure that you're putting in the work and love what you do, and everything else will follow.
Stepheny JACQUEZ, keynote speaker at LatinTalks Houston, September 17th. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
you so much.